We are chatting something that I feel like has been top of mind for a lot of people recently. What to do when sales slow and how to bounce back stronger. So I know that there's been a lot of talk. I know there's been a lot of economic uncertainty. We've had tariffs, we've had just all sorts of things that are changing consumer or buying habits. So if sales have slowed or you're worried that they might, you're definitely not alone right now, especially with times of economic uncertainty or seasonal dips. It's really easy to avoid looking at your finances and kind of like, head in the sand and ignoring it. So I wanted to take time this month to break it down in a way that feels simple and doable. And we're going to talk all about different patterns, habits, and warning signs that can help you stay grounded during slow seasons and during economic shifts, because I feel like these are kind of two sides of the same coin. One of them we can predict a little bit better, one of them we, hence it being unpredictable, can't predict quite as well. So a few of the things that I want to talk about are how to prepare for slow seasons and economic downturns, making confident business decisions. And then the biggest one here really is why prioritizing sales, relationships, and client experiences can be your best safety net. So we do have a few things of like early signs your business needs to pay attention to and some key money flows to watch. But what I want to start with is the last item first with prioritizing sales, relationships, and client experiences is your best safety net. So I know that this is being talked about in a lot of the wedding circle groups that I have been in, and it's not just wedding industry. We work with, graphic designers, email marketers, you name it, and there's just been weird fluctuations and people not as a whole, but there has been changes in buying habits, or maybe someone needs a little bit more reassurance before they're comfortable buying, or maybe they need some payment plan options before they buy, or maybe they're looking at a smaller package than they would have looked at. So all of those things can factor into this, but at the end of the day, I think that one of the best things that you can be doing always, but especially right now, is making sure that you're prioritizing relationships and client experience. Because in my experience, you are much more likely to continue to work with clients when they're referrals from other clients. So, you get a lead that comes in and a completely cold lead versus one that has come from a client that you worked with 6 months ago. You may close both, but the odds of you closing the one that is a direct referral from someone you've worked with generally are a little bit higher. They've probably already been talked to about who you are. They already have that element of trust added in from their friend or referrer. And that is really important and also speaks to an easier channel for marketing. I'm not here to say that paid marketing isn't where it's at, but it's something that we prioritize in our business. And also from a purely client experience standpoint, I really love getting referrals from existing or past clients because if I like those individuals, chances are people that they refer are going to be weird or funky in a way that works really well. And I mean weird in like the best way. We're going to probably have a better experience. Not to say that again, completely new clients coming into my sphere may not have a potential for that as well. It's just that the odds of them being a really good fit tend to be a little bit higher. And so it can make the experience that much more enjoyable. I'm not having to fish through or suss out who's a really good fit. And they end up then having a better experience, continue to build this, referral network. I look at everything as a referral network, not in a sleazy way, but in a like, how am I adding value? How am I contributing to benefiting people's lives? And feeling really good about that. And so I know that some people have some hangups when it comes to selling. I don't have hangups when it comes to selling because I'm not ever trying to sell someone something that I don't think that they would benefit from or that I wouldn't specifically recommend to someone if it was me in those same shoes or in that same position. And that makes me feel really ethically aligned with how I'm selling. I think that there can be a disconnect when someone thinks that, selling is bad. Well, you're a business owner and you think selling is bad. It's going to kind of cause some potential issues there. So we're building relationships. We are again, when I say networking, I use networking as a general term. When I think networking, I think community building, I think relationship building. So, something that I am prioritizing as an introvert is leaning into parallel industries. So, networking with lawyers that I really love working with that have clients that they could refer and vice versa, fiduciaries, other, luxury or wedding industry groups that have, people that are a little bit weird or a little bit quirky. And then because those are my people, looking into like witchy or spiritual, entrepreneurial or business groups. All of those can be really good areas where I can be building relationships and adding value. And so I don't ever want you to look at this as like, I would basically be caught dead before heading to a networking event in town for something that was, like boss babes unite, not shitting on boss babes, but like not my vibe. I'm not here for hustle culture. Like it's just not, I wouldn't want clients and I wouldn't want referral partners that operate in that way. That may have been me, 6, 7, 8, 10 years ago. It's not where I want to be now. And so, really being intentional here about where you're ending up and where you're spending your time and your effort to build genuine relationships, to add genuine value. And then the client experience. I was planning to run the mastermind this fall, and we've had a lot of changes in the business on the done for you side, on the tax side, on the bookkeeping side. And that's 75% of our business. And so, something that I really want to be doing this fall is making sure that our clients are having the experience that I want for them with us. That's extra time checking in with them. That's, getting feedback, that's making tweaks, that's changing workflows. All of that takes time and energy. And so, I'm planning to postpone the mastermind a little bit because I love running it, but I need to make sure that I'm prioritizing the bulk of our business, the bulk of our clients, especially with economic uncertainty and them dealing with their own economic uncertainty or anxiety that comes up around all of this. And so there's kind of two sides to that client experience, right? There's the very like, are they getting what they paid for? And then how are you making them feel? How is the process for them? And that's something that I always encourage you to do an audit of. And what I mean by that is get feedback, encourage feedback. And I don't mean just testimonials. I don't mean just reviews, although those are great. Love it. We regularly, like normally once a quarter, and if not once a quarter, at least every 6 months, we ask for feedback from a lot of our clients on what's working, what isn't working. If they had a magic wand that they could wave, what would they change? Doesn't mean that we can fulfill all of those, right? Sometimes they'll pop up with things, and I'm like, that's just it's not something that we can do right now. We can't. Someone had given a really great suggestion and I absolutely saved it for later of like, 1 page PDFs on a lot of common topics a year and a half ago. We actually have two of those now that we've developed, but it wasn't something that we had the capability. It wasn't something that was going to benefit a bunch of the clients at the time, and we hadn't been seeing that being raised. But we did see some commonalities of areas where there was constructive feedback given for ways to improve. And so that's something that we've done. And it also builds, in our case, like we have recurring clients. And so it builds trust between our clients and ourselves that like they gave feedback and it didn't just go into a vacuum. We actually did something with it. We acknowledged it. We reached out to them. We let them know because I appreciate it. The whole point of us being in business is to be helping them. And so if there's something that we can be doing to help or to make this more fun, more enjoyable, I know it's taxes, but like more fun, more enjoyable, what can we be doing? And then I think on anyone that's working with clients as a one-off, right? You have a project basis, or you have, you're an efficient, you're a wedding photographer, you're a wedding planner. I think building in feedback can be really beneficial. And I think being really intentional about how you're getting that feedback, because I think you can give some examples sometimes of like, hey, this is, what past clients have said, or like, here's an example of what we're not leading them because I do want genuine feedback, but I know sometimes that like I've gotten into it and I've been like, oh my God, this is like 35 questions. Like, this is a huge ask. So I think we keep it really short. I think we ask for 5 or 6 points of feedback, and it should take someone 5 to 10 minutes tops to fill out. And we ask, can we contact you if we have follow up questions? Because every once in a great while, there will be something that I'm like, ooh, I'm not sure where you're going with that. I have questions. I want to make sure this isn't a bigger issue. And that lets me reach out to touch base with them and know that it's welcome or not welcome. So I really recommend that. And then again, reviewing your client experience as a whole. And I see this a lot. Like there's a wedding elopement photographer that I follow that's in Iceland. And she's gotten really good about advertising to her people and making sure that the experience is tailored to her clients. Like that's her whole shtick with it, right? Is like, you're coming out here, I'm for the weirdos, I'm for, the funky people, I'm for the outcasts, I'm for the black sheep. And what does that look like? You're coming out here to do this, you're doing something out of the norm, you're doing this adventure, like we're co-creating this. And I'm not privy to her, behind the scenes of how she's crafting all of that. But just having seen that, I can envision that she's attracting a lot of really aligned people. And so making sure that her client experience continues to align with the messaging and the marketing that she's putting out there and making sure there's not a difference in that. Because if you say you're an adventure elopement, you're customizing these things, and then you get someone there and you're like, okay, well, it's formulaic. We're going to do this and this and this. You're probably not going to have great referral business coming in because there's a misalignment between what you were putting out there. Now, there's a difference between giving examples of like, these are some of the things that we've done in the past that we can totally incorporate, but I want to get to know you. I want to know, what you and your partner like, what makes you tick, what you're looking for, like what the vibe is, so that you can really co-create. Even though behind the scenes, you may even have kind of different client profiles that you can pull from to resource. That's part of your knowledge, part of your business acumen, and part of what they're coming to you for. And then lastly, like, how are you making them feel? What are you leaving this with? Are they leaving empowered? Are they leaving with less anxiety? Are they leaving feeling like their day was perfectly captured by someone that really understands them? Are they feeling understood and heard? And it may be some combination of all of these, but that's something that you need to make sure that you're being intentional about. And then the last part of this is prioritizing sales. So again, you want to make sure that you're prioritizing existing and future clients as well as potential clients, but not at the expense of your current clients, right? So how can we be making sure that we're setting expectations for potential clients? We're, laying marketing out there that aligns. If maybe you're getting feedback from prospective clients that didn't book with you, you're too expensive, or we found someone that was a better fit, I would encourage you to nudge into that a little bit. Hey, thank you so much for giving me the feedback because we love it when someone gives feedback instead of just ghosting. But be kind of taking that into consideration that, like, hey, if you don't go with me, what was your reason for not? Again, you can get a really quick little like couple answer thing, or even was it something in these lines if you want to give them like a pre-filled out so that you can ask additional questions. They're not indebted to you. They don't owe you anything. So you're going to get a little bit less feedback there, but it lets you start to recognize patterns because something that you may want to be looking at. I am never a fan of discounting your services right off the bat. What I am a fan of is customizing a package or a service offering to meet someone's financial needs. What that could look like, for example, way, way back in the day for my first marriage, 15 plus years ago, I was just a baby and I had reached out to a photographer that I really liked, that I wanted to work with, but I didn't have the money to pay for the photography package in full. And so I asked him, I said, hey, our wedding isn't for a year and a half. Is this something that you'd be willing to do a payment plan for? And he had never offered payment plans before, which is crazy to me to think of now, 15 years later, because I think almost all of our photographers offer payment plans of some sort. And he did. He did a monthly payment plan broken up over the course of time that we had until the wedding was. And that was so helpful. And he ended up telling me, he's like, thanks. I actually offer payment plans now more often. And so I think that that's something that can be really easy to think about is, like, how are you customizing, right? Maybe a couple comes to you and you're so excited to work with them. You feel like there's a lot of synergy here, like everything's vibing, and maybe you're just out of budget for them. It's something, especially during times of economic uncertainty, where you could even offer, like, hey, I have pay in full, a retainer option, or if you're looking for something, that's, I know we're kind of on the cusp of the top end of your budget. If you're looking for something that helps break this out, we have these options. And it could be a monthly breakout. It could be that, you're removing, I'm just going to make this up, but you're removing a rehearsal dinner from it, or you're shortening the overall time span so you can get, again, we're using photography as an example, but so you can get, getting ready, ceremony, and then an hour of the reception. There are ways to compromise on this where you're still getting compensated accordingly and getting to work with great clients. So something that I definitely encourage you to be thinking about, not across the board, right? We're not throwing these compromises out for clients that aren't clients that we want to be working with. We're putting this out here as potential options and just showing that you have availability. Again, not to discount, but to meet a client where they're at within reason. And sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes you're just out of budget, and that's totally fine too. It doesn't mean anything about you or your pricing. It's just something to be considering. So what we want to be doing is we want to be able to make confident business decisions. And a good part of making confident business decisions comes to knowing your numbers. And this is both for slow seasons and for economic downturns. And what I want you to be thinking about, and this gets, I'm going to say easier, the longer you've been in business, because the more history you have, the more months, the more years, the more patterns you can see, the more seasonality you can understand. And in all fairness, anyone that's worked in the wedding or events industry in the past 5 years, there hasn't been a normal year. Like you have a little bit of seasonality that influences it, but you've also had all of these other, you've had a pandemic, you've had economic ups and downs and uncertainties coming through all of the time. And so there's been this societal sort of overlay on top of the seasonality that does influence things for better or for worse. But a lot of clients will start to see seasonality. And I'll use our business as a prime example. The months of July and November are our lowest revenue months. I literally have a reminder on my calendar. Everything will be fine. This is normal. It happens every year. Go look at your income statements if you need it. But, and literally without fail, the first week of August, things are trucking right along. Same thing with December, but it's that kind of weird, you're holding your breath. And so we see that happen with a lot of our clients that have seasonality as well, right? You have peak season where you were just going, you have an editing queue, you have, clients to reach out to, your email is overflowing. It's all you can do to like keep on top of it all. And then you generally have the off peak season and you're twiddling your thumbs, or maybe you're a little bit anxious, or you're wondering if the bookings are going to come in. And so something that I like doing then is I like having an intention for the off peak season. And that intention can be a couple of different things, right? My favorite things to do during off peak season is community build, update client experience. And that can be changing systems, that can be updating things on the back end for us. That can also be launching something if there, because I have the time, I have the capacity, I have the mental and social bandwidth to do it. And so those are all like three different options depending on what's going on that you could be looking at in your business. Now, part of that depends on where you are financially. If you're at a spot where maybe your peak season was really good, you've been able to plan accordingly, it's more than enough to get you through off peak season. That might be a really, oh, fourth option. You can take time off. You can rest. Novel concept. But if you have enough financially and you've been able to look at your numbers and been able to look at your averages and know what you need to get you through the off peak season, and you feel confident in your bookings that are coming in, I really like taking vacation, taking some rest, or taking time to make some system improvements on the back end, or some combination of those, depending on how long your off peak season is. If maybe you're in a spot where you're really nervous or anxious about your cash flow, I think that that's a good time to be working on your community building, referrals, networking, past clients, asking for referrals from past clients, asking for testimonials from past clients or feedback. And if you're in an immediate cash crunch, what can you be doing to incentivize clients to book during off-peak season? Are you offering a, custom vow book? Are you offering a complimentary engagement session? Do you have a posing and styling guide that you want to give someone? Do you have an additional, strategy call if you're someone that does, maybe content strategy? All of these can be ways that you can incentivize people to book without inherently discounting your services, but still driving conversions during your off-peak season. And you can also launch something brand new. Maybe you want to mentor, maybe you've gotten a lot of requests for it. This is a really good time to kind of dip your toe into that and see if you like it. That can be bringing in additional revenue. And then again, on the networking side of things, the community building side of the things, it's not normally as quick of a turn, but it is more for a longer term growth strategy in your business that I find having a strong network, both for you being able to refer out and for them being able to refer to you, is really, really beneficial. Now, where it can help you in the more immediate future is asking for referrals from clients that you loved working with. I absolutely think that that's a great way to go about it. Hey, we do have a few available spots. We have XYZ. We have this service. I absolutely loved working with you. It was an absolute dream. And there's times, not for everyone that's watching this, but there can be times where could they be a repeat client? I see a lot of times we have some wedding photographers, for example, that maybe they do an engagement session They do their wedding, they do a maternity session, they do a newborn session, they do family photos. And that's something, can you upsell someone an album? Hey, it's been a year since your wedding, and I noticed that, you haven't done any prints. And if you've already figured out something, that's totally fine. But I'm offering XYZ. I'm offering a discount on albums, prints, etc. And because sometimes there's like, White House Custom Color or Pick Time or Pixie Set or some of these that will run specials, and maybe you put in like discounted album design if it's something that they book with you in July, or whatever your off-peak season is. So things to be thinking about for how to both add value to existing clients or past clients, ask for referrals from existing clients, and then also, build your community, build your network, and or provide new offerings. Now, I want to talk about being able to make confident business decisions, which goes really hand in hand with the early signs that your business needs attention. And so, things that you should be looking at, it's very unique to you and your business individually here, but something that you should be paying attention to is, what are your base operating expenses? Knowing your numbers with this. What are your base operating expenses in the business? What are your base operating expenses personally that you need to contribute to? If it's just you and your household, that should be all of your expenses. If you have a partner that also contributes financially, then it's your portion that you need to be bringing to the household. If you know those basics and you've added a buffer in, I always recommend at least 20% because unexpected things pop up. That gives you a better idea of what you need to be making. In an ideal world, I always recommend having at least 3 months of expenses. Not the same as income, but expenses. Reason being, 3 months generally can be stretched to six, sometimes a little bit longer. You may feel different about this. There is nothing wrong with you having 6 months or a year. I think a year gets to be a little ridiculous at a certain point, but everyone has different risk tolerances. So you need to keep what you feel less anxiety thing, what you feel at peace having, to flip that into a more positive with this. The reason that I like 3 months is because there's a cost benefit. So the more that you're keeping liquid in savings, the less you're earning on it. You're not able to invest it into the business, and it's just sitting there not working for you. The reason that I like 3 months is 3 months has a tendency to be able to be stretched to six, because in general, most of us don't lose all of our income sources all at once, especially if you're a business owner. You may see a drop in income. So maybe your income drops 30%. You're still making 70% of what you're making. Chances are, if you're going for your full expenses, you have some expenses that you could cut in a pinch. So between those two things, getting to 6 months worth of runway can be pretty straightforward, I think. Same thing on the personal side, right? You could probably cut some expenses. You could probably drop your streaming services. You might be able to drop your internet or your phone plan down. Like, there's ways that you can do it to stretch that 3 months a little bit longer. So things to definitely be thinking about is like, what feels good to you, and like sit down, write the numbers out, take an average of, your 3 peak months for expenses. What I would be looking at though is if you are seeing that your bookings, and this is tough, if you're seeing that your bookings are not keeping up with your baseline, I want you to look at a couple of different things. And this part is kind of targeted directly towards wedding industry professionals or event professionals, because this has been a conversation coming up a lot. If you are booking and you've noticed that your bookings are getting tighter or shorter in timelines, maybe instead of booking 12 to 18 months out, you're booking 6 to 8 months out. Or maybe vice versa. Maybe they're going 24 months out because you have people looking for payment plans. Be looking at your numbers and be taking that into consideration. Maybe in the past you were booking right at 12 months. And so that people coming through right now are potentially looking to book for, I'm going to use next summer as an example. Great. Maybe instead you're having people that are booking for March, or they're kind of kicking the tire a little bit, or you're not quite sure what's going on. That may bring in some cause for concern in how you're planning. And so, because it may be that your business isn't slowing down, but your cash flow may be changing. So if you go from booking 12 months in advance to 6 months in advance, there's going to be a gap where you're probably not booking as much while you start to see those patterns emerge. Same thing where if you have people that jump to booking further out, you're going to probably have an increase in that, and then a little bit of an eventual slowdown. So that's where knowing your numbers and being able to make confident decisions around this really makes a difference. And I'm going to be honest, making confident decisions is a little bit of a misnomer right now, because I don't have a crystal ball. Not that I ever have a crystal ball. metaphorically, literally, yes. But you need to be making as informed a decision as you can that you feel good with. And so for some of you, that may mean, you know what? I'd feel a lot better if I picked up a little part-time job at a coffee shop. I'd feel better if I had a secondary source of income here. There's nothing wrong with that. We've had several business owners that are like, you know what? I don't want to stress about my business right now. I want to keep booking. I want to make some changes. I feel good about it, but like bookings are a little bit slower and I'm stressed out about it. And I'm not making good decisions or confident decisions from this place of stress and anxiety. So you can also do things like that to relieve the pressure. A day job or part-time work or freelancing for something, it's just a tool. I think there's a lot of shame or a lot of stigma, especially in the self-employed world about, like failing or going back to corporate or getting a job. I took a job for 3 years from 2017 to 2020 to take pressure off of my business, to qualify for a house, to just make things easier. It was a tool. I liked what I did until I didn't. And then I haven't gone back. Doesn't mean I wouldn't consider it in the future. And if the right opportunity presented itself, I'd absolutely consider it. I love a good challenge. I love something fun, some novelty that comes in. So be thinking about that too. You don't have to just put all of this pressure on your business. There is nothing wrong with kind of ebbing and flowing as you go throughout life and take things that help support you the most. Things that you should be watching for is in an ideal world, how much money has come in? How much money do you have forecasted to come in? And if you have enough history, look at prior years. For example, if you know that you've made $50,000 so far this year and you have $35,000 estimated in bookings for the rest of the year based on what has been booked currently, and last year, in the last 6 months of the year, you had $20,000 in deposits come through, it's probably reasonable then for you to go, okay, I've made $50,000. $35,000 left to come in. I had $20,000 in deposits last year, the last half of the year. Add that on. You can probably expect to make around 105,000 if things are looking relatively consistent. That lets you know, okay, if I think I'm going to make around 105,000 this year, does that meet what I need to be making to pay my bills, to plan for my business? If it doesn't, if it's way more, if it's way less, those are things that you need to be paying attention to because maybe you need help. Maybe you've dramatically overbooked. Maybe you need an assistant. Maybe you need someone to take something off your plate. Maybe you need a housekeeper to help you on the personal side of things or you need to order like a meal prep service. All of these kind of give you an idea, both peak, off peak, I'm not going to say good, bad because money's neutral. It is what it is. But what can you be watching here? And then on the same side, what do your expenses look like? Do you think that you need to be replacing equipment? Are you looking to make a big investment? Do you have a hire that you need to be making? Do you have a really huge tax bill coming through? All of these things can impact your cash flow. So you need to be able to plan accordingly for how this works. So this isn't here to scare you. This is here to help you leave with a good action plan about where to get started. So like the first thing I would do leaving this is, where are your numbers? How do things look this year? How do they look for the last 4 or 5 months of this year? How does that compare to prior years, last year, several years before? Again, we're kind of comparing apples to oranges, a whisker, but it's the best we have for data. What are your bookings looking like? What do your services look like? How do your inquiries look like now compared to prior years? Have you had a slowdown in inquiries? Have you had the same number of inquiries, but fewer people booking? Those give you points where you can look for improvements or changes. So, for example, if we're having a lot of inquiries come through, but only 20% of them are converting, and in years past, 75% of them are converting, doesn't tell us the exact answer, but it tells us that there may be a mismatch here. Are we not talking about our services in a way that resonates, that shows the value? Have we dramatically changed prices or packaging compared to last year? Have we changed offerings? Have we changed payment plan options for things? Have we changed who's talking to clients or how we're talking to clients or how we are following up with them? All of those things can impact it. And also, have we changed our initial flow, right? Client comes in, where are they coming? Who are they? Like, what's the referral source? Are they finding us on Instagram? Are they being referred by a past client? Has that changed from prior years? So all of those are things to be paying attention to so that you can be able to make informed decisions instead of, because especially if things do slow down or you feel anxiety, I think that humans have a tendency to spin out and either do absolutely nothing and freeze or do everything. And you're just, I think it's throwing spaghetti at the wall. What sticks? That's not a way to be operating. That's miserable. And so instead, sitting down, taking some deep breaths, really getting grounded and looking at, okay, where is this breaking down? Where could this be improved? And then taking time to make strategic moves that way. And I'm not saying that you need to go devote 5 hours every day to doing this. For me, what it's looked like is with building community, I joined a community that is really aligned with what I want to be doing. And I have decided on the personal side that I'm connecting with my personal community more. I did a whole podcast about this not that long ago. And those are two relatively low lift areas for me to start sort of, I'm going to use a fitness metaphor here, but like flexing that muscle and building up strength for it. Because for me, if I were to jump in and be like, I'm joining this, I'm going to this networking event, I'm doing Engage, I'm, you know, going to, I don't know, my local WIPA chapter, I'm doing all of these different things, I'd absolutely burn out. And I compare frequently a lot of habits like this to what you see for fitness, right? Like maybe you're like, you know what, I'm gonna do all of these things. I'm gonna change everything about how I'm eating. I'm gonna, eat only whole foods. I'm gonna eat, tons of protein. I'm gonna do all this fiber. You get a week or two into it, and you generally it's not sustainable. You're not able to maintain it. Versus, I'm gonna aim for 100 grams of protein a day. How can we make this a low lift? Because if you haven't been getting protein regularly, maybe you've been getting 50 or 60 grams of protein. That's a decent amount to increase. And you're going to stick with that. And then you're going to habit stack. Maybe then once that feels really comfortable and like you don't have to think about it, then we're adding, more fiber rich vegetables in or, legumes, etc. Same thing on the business side. Where can you make an easy lift now? Maybe it's joining one community group. Maybe it's reviewing your inquiries. Maybe it's looking at your finances. Maybe it's reaching out to past clients for referrals. Pick something that feels attainable and then add to that instead of just everything all at once. The added bonus of that is it lets you start to see, granted, these efforts would hypothetically be cumulative over a 6 or 12 month time span or longer, but you can start seeing if there's results from it. For example, if you go reach out to a bunch of past clients and you say, hey, let's say you're looking for referrals. Hey, I have several available weekends during prime wedding season in 2026. I loved working with you. It would mean the world to me if you had anyone in mind that could use my services that you think would be a great fit. This isn't the best way to phrase it. I'm sure there's plenty of better ways, but go ask for that. And then next week, ask 5 more clients. And next week, ask 5 more. But that's one a day, or you could do 5 in one day. And it's really easy to go send those off for some people. Maybe for you, you're like, yeah, that's my worst nightmare. I'd rather do anything else. Pick something else. So I just encourage you, if you are feeling anxiety, action, in my experience, is a really big solution. Aligned, intentional action is a really big help when you're feeling anxious or you're feeling stressed about things, especially in your business. But I don't want it to come from a place of just panicking. We're aligned, we're intentional, we're grounded, we're making moves. Even if that's, you know what? I'm going to reach out to my past job and see if they have a part-time position because I left on really good terms. You have lots of options.
That's a wrap for this episode of the Wealth Witches podcast. I hope our magical money talks have left you feeling empowered and inspired. Remember, wealth isn't just about dollars in the bank, it's about abundance and financial freedom in all aspects of your life. I'm Katelyn Magnuson, encouraging you to keep challenging the status quo and embrace your inner witch on this financial journey. Until next time, stay magical.